Welcome over to Automotive World, everyone. I'm your host, Vinny Mystery, and tonight we are now doing our second part of the other video from our Nissan sales figures. We are going to do Infiniti sales figures, and I'm going to keep it honest with you. Before we get into this is going to be very much as kind of like how when we do our Honda sales figures. Honda's always killing it, Acura's always not killing it. They're struggling, and you could make a very convincing argument that Acura brings Honda down. It's going to look very similar here over with Infiniti, because Infiniti is down overall. And just before we get up here, we're going to come back to our chart up here. 2023 Infiniti sales were 15,757, and this year they're 13,904. It is a dip. It's a huge dip. You could argue Infiniti is they don't sell as many vehicles, so for Infiniti it is quite a large dip. That is down 11.8%. So we're gonna get into it and we're gonna talk about it, and a lot of what we're gonna talk about in this video is very applicable to the Honda and Acura situation. And let's start off here with the Q50. It's a vehicle, it's down 0.4%. Sold 1,366 last year in quarter one of 2023. This year, we sold 1,397 in this year. So excuse me, actually, that is an apology on my side. It is actually up 2.3%, not down 0.4%. That is the quarterly change, but it is actually up 2.3%. Is that a good thing? Yeah, when something goes up, it's always a good thing. But when you're selling not even 1,500 units of something, and like I said, the way Nissan and Infiniti do their sales, they don't do month to month. They do quarterly, so usually every 3 months. Obviously 4 quarters in a year, 12 months. So when you think about that, that means roughly every month they're selling less than 500 units, and that's even. I mean, that could have a month where on that vehicle they sell 0 units, and the next 2 months they go crazy over 500-600 units. So when you think about that, they're selling essentially under 500, close to, or if not under 500 units every month, which is not necessarily a good thing. As for the Q60, last year 374 units for quarter one. This year 37 units. So rip. It's not gonna be there much longer. That is a decrease of 90.1%. Sad to say, but we know it's not gonna be there much longer, so that's unfortunate there. As for the Q70 and the QX30, a lot of time manufacturers, even if they don't make the vehicle here, they will still leave it on the chart there. Those are 0. We're not going to worry about those. Those are anomalies. They don't mean anything. The QX50, up 10.3% for Infiniti. Last year, a little bit over 2,300 units. This year, we're also a little bit over 2,500 units, close to 2,600 units. So not bad, 10.3% increase. As for the QX55, down 19.8%, close to 1,400 units last year. This year, very close to 1,100 units, just 5 units away. So that is a 19.8% decrease here. And unfortunately, like I said, there's not going to be a lot of increases on this chart. As for the QX60, down 11.3%. A little bit over 7,100 units last year. This year, 6,333 units. As for the QX70, it's a 0. It's an anomaly. We're not going to worry about that. The QX80, this is a big vehicle. This is something obviously very similar, shared platforms and things with the Armada that we covered for Nissan. This is always something that is shared the same platform, shared the same components, same powertrain. As we saw with the Armada in our Nissan video, the Armada's down big time. Down 45.3%, selling over 7,200 units last year. This year for quarter one, we haven't even cracked 4,000. So right now for quarter one, year to year. Armada is down big time. And we could argue the bigger brother, the bigger sister, the nicer looking one, the better one, is also down 22.3%. So when we have a vehicle like that that has that shared, platform, shared powertrain, shared components, when both of them are down, it's not a good sign. It is a really, really bad sign, because that's a vehicle that when you have that kind of, you're sharing stuff, so your development costs are cheaper. You should, in theory, get better quality and better reliability. That's something that's supposed to make the company more efficient. You can make more of them quicker, so it's supposed to, make you more money, essentially, make it a better vehicle. When both of them are down, both of them are considerably down, it's not good, because last year they sold 3,183 in quarter one. This year, 2,473. So both of them are down considerably. The other scary thing is, last year selling almost 3,200 units. This year selling almost 2,500 units. Like I said, Armada is down. It's the vehicle that is shared off of. The Armada last year in quarter one sold 7,272 units. And this year, 3,977. And for the Armada nameplate, that is down 45.3% versus, I believe, the 22.1 or 22.3% that it was here. But the crazy thing is that, obviously, and this is going to do with, obviously, the Armada being a cheaper vehicle as well, because it does have the Nissan badge on there. But that's a big vehicle for Infiniti. They put a lot of money into that. When we look at the number here, and we look at last year's number, that's still more. And when we look at this year's number, how it's gone down, it's considerably more. So the fact that this vehicle is down here, 22.3%, but then essentially the cheaper version of it, but very similar, same vehicle, is here and is also down considerably, 45.3%. This is not good news for Infiniti. It's not good news for Nissan either. Like I said in the last video, despite Nissan growing in sales from 2023 to 2024 for quarter one, when we compare the sales, Nissan sales still grew. When we look at the Nissan sales here for first quarter, up 7.2%. And when we look here just for division sales, for just calendar year sales, total units, Nissan is also up as well, arguably 8.5%. But then when we look at Infiniti sales, we are down 11.8%. And like I covered in the last video, Nissan has a lot of models that are going away. The GTR is going away. The Z is going to be one of the heavy hitters. It's going to be their only enthusiast car left. When we look at Infiniti, what here can we salvage and take away from Infiniti? It's a very similar story to what is happening with Acura. Because just like with Honda, even though Nissan has some stuff that I found concerning in the last video I had questions about, Nissan's still doing good. Nissan is still up. They are still growing. They are still killing it for the most part. Honda, when we cover those videos, they're absolutely killing it. Even though the Accord is down major, big time. Passport, Ridgeline, down big time right now. They're still killing it. But then when we come over to Acura, they're bringing they're bringing Honda down. They're killing Honda in a way, and it's the same thing with Infiniti. Infiniti it's like they're killing Nissan, and it just sucks because when you look at Nissan and Honda, they're very similar in ways, and when you look at Infiniti Acura, they're extremely similar in ways. They all tried to do what Toyota Lexus did, and even Lexus is down right now. But they've always tried to do what Lexus did. But it's so interesting with Infiniti and Acura how similar it is, because it's just like every time when I cover those videos, I'm always, and you guys always, if you watch them, you see them, I'm always figuring out like what can we do? What is there if there's even something possible we can do? And it's the same thing with Infiniti. What can Infiniti do? What can Infiniti do to salvage it? Because when you look at the numbers here, just like I was talking about in the Nissan video, here. The GTR, the Z doesn't have much to salvage from GTR owners, just because of the type of people who are buying GTR and things. The Ultima with the Maxima going away doesn't have much sales to steal from there. Like, at least like with Mazda, like we covered with the CX-5 and the CX-50, we know that the CX, 50 has been taking some sales from CX-5, and they still both sell extremely well. But when we look at Infiniti, a lot of times when we look at these sales figures, obviously we have to attract outside buyers. First-time buyers to the brand or returning buyers that, didn't buy another Infiniti. But a lot of times, too, with car companies, we have to look and see, okay, what can we do? Because we know that people own Infinitis. We know a lot, and this is with all car brands, we know people will want to stay loyal to the brand. But we look at these sales figures. Let's say these are, a lot of these people are loyal to the brand. We don't know what percentage, but let's assume a lot of them are. What sales figures here, what can we salvage that can go from one car to the other? Because when we look at this, except for the Q50, which we could argue is very soon could be down, and except for the QX50, every other vehicle is down considerably. So what is it here that we can use to salvage from Infiniti, or from Nissan for that matter, to bring them over and to boost one of the sales of these models while also still, keeping strong sales here and enhancing the portfolio? Because there's not a lot that we have that we can salvage from, unfortunately. And I don't know what Infiniti can do about it. Obviously the QX80 is a big vehicle. They just updated it. It looks really, really nice. Infiniti doesn't have a lot of enthusiast cars in the market anymore. They don't have too many coupes and things like that anymore, unfortunately. So I'm just wondering, I'm just trying to think, what can Infiniti do? Because they don't have the sales, they don't have the presence anymore, they don't have the dealer network. I never see an ad for an Infiniti. I barely ever see someone driving one. What can Infiniti do? Like Acura, what can Nissan and Infiniti do to salvage this dilemma? Because when you look at it too, Infiniti isn't selling a lot of units. Like, if you take the QX50 and the Q50, right? Let's add that together. This is how much of an anomaly. This is how much, even though they're selling a few thousand cars, when you're selling a few thousand cars as a car manufacturer, that's not enough. You got to be selling, like, for a model to be worth it, you got to be selling at least like 10, and even 10 isn't a lot, but 10 to 20,000 units. Like, you got to be in that range, 10, 15, 20,000. But let's do a little math here, right? Let's take the two cars that are only up in this lineup, because there's only two cars in this lineup that have grown, right? So let's take Infiniti's two bestsellers, the QX50. So it's 2,569 units plus the Q50, right? It's 1,397 units. 1,397 units. That equals 3,966 units. We can see that here in the calculator. Let's go up to Nissan. Let's go up to one of the lowest selling Nissans. The Versa, let's come up here. Let's not use the Versa because that's grown quite a lot. But let's look at something like EVs, right? EVs are struggling right now overall. But let's look at this. Nissan's EV, the Aria, went up 44.8%. To the Aria, an EV model that is extremely expensive, and when we look at it compared to other EVs in the class may necessarily not be worth it, is selling more units than those two models combined, and it is an EV. Let's look at the Armada. The Armada is struggling, right? The Armada is down 45.3%. The Armada is not a cheap vehicle. Armada is a vehicle that's like 60, 70, 80,000, right? The Armada is selling 3,977 units. Those two Infiniti models that were up are selling 3,966 units. Even the Titan, that is on its way out, is selling more units. The two models, one of them barely, just barely by the skin of its teeth has any growth. But the only two models that are profitable for Infiniti, that have grown, that did good for quarter one, aren't even doing as good as a vehicle that is in the same price range, if not 2 or 3 times higher, that is down 45.3%. Those two vehicles can't even outsell one vehicle. And those two vehicles can't even outsell a similar vehicle that is high priced, maybe necessarily compared to what's in the class not worth it, and in this very volatile market, in a very politicized market where people don't like EVs, it can't even beat the EV. It can't even beat the Aria. Now, I'm not taking a crap on the Aria. It's an interesting car. I don't personally like the design of it too much, but it's an interesting car. But it's quite expensive. There's other vehicles, even EVs in the class, especially in this market, with EV value going down from Tesla, from other automakers, from VW, that offer a better value. Even Hyundai and Kia, better value. Those two vehicles, ICE powertrain vehicles that grew, cannot even outsell a vehicle that is down 45.3% and an EV that doesn't even sell 5,000 units in a quarter. Even the Murano, a vehicle that's down 62%. The Murano almost sold 2,500, or not 2,500. The Murano almost sold 12,500 units last year. This year, the Murano sold 4,726. And I get it. It's an old vehicle. It's on the way out. It doesn't necessarily look very attractive. It's not very inspiring to drive. Nissan's got better offerings. It couldn't even beat the Murano. And it's a very similar story. It's like with the Integra. The Civic Si and even the regular Civic is so good that there's no point in buying the Integra. And like I said, I come back down here. This vehicle, one of them barely scraped being profitable, right? The other one is is up 10.3, right? Every other vehicle for Infiniti is either down 10% or more, down 11.3, down 22.3, down 19.8, down 90.1. We can argue that's an anomaly as well, just because it's not going to be there. But it's not good. Like I said, these are ICE powertrains. These are vehicles that when these two vehicles, your two most profitable vehicles in the quarter, cannot beat vehicles that are on the way out. It cannot beat a vehicle that is down over 45% on the quarter, year to year. And it cannot even beat an EV vehicle. Like I said, one that's not necessarily bad. I just think there's better offering for a better price other than the Aria. And especially in the time that we're in, like I said, people don't like EVs. They politicize them. A lot of people are going back to gas. And just the value of EVs, are dropping. When you can't beat that, when you cannot beat that, Infiniti, I don't know what to tell you. It's the same thing when I go through this with Acura, when I go through their sales figures. Because even when I see an Acura, I don't see an Acura that I find appealing. I don't see an Infiniti that I find appealing. I never see an ad for one. I never see a dealer for one. I don't know what to tell you. Genuinely don't know what to tell you. But I hope Infiniti figures it out, because Infiniti's made some cool cars in the past. And I hope they stick around. I'd like to see them stick around. It's never good to see a car company go away. Especially when living in America, it's a capitalist market, it's a free market. More competition is always better. More options is always better. Everybody should have an option that they like. It's just what it is. That's going to do it for now, everyone. Please let me know what you think down below. If you've owned an Infiniti, if you're thinking about buying one, whether you're satisfied, you're not satisfied, let me know what your ownership is. Also, for those of you who are big to the Nissan Infiniti brand, let me know on both these videos, but especially on this one, what do you think Infiniti needs to do to salvage themselves and bring them back? Or is it maybe kind of like Acura? Do you think it's a little bit too late? Is it just Infiniti just kind of clinging on for as long as they can? Let me know what you guys and girls think down below. That is going to do it for now. Like always, thanks for watching, everyone.